When Lord of the Rings Gollum dropped, it wasn't really received with the highest of praise. It was a game everyone looked at and said, this is going to be bad. And from the screenshots and trailer, I couldn't blame people. My biggest concern was why did they make Gollum look like this, looking like some sort of Three Stooges reject, instead of the original design from the books and movies. I guess for a sense of creative freedom, but I still don't see how they would think this looks better than this. But the story is supposed to follow Gollum before he meets up with Frodo and them, as he's in search of his beloved precious, the one ring to rule them all that he's obsessed with. And this is supposed to highlight the abuse, neglect, and betrayal that Gollum faces throughout, and honestly, it's hard to get that when the game's just this bad. The controls are some kind of anomaly that I don't understand. Sometimes they work flawlessly, and other times it feels clunky as all get out. But either way, it just doesn't feel right. It feels like when you're playing this that it just doesn't make any sense. Like times in the game where you try to go and grab for a ledge and you do the input to grab the ledge, yet the game just says no and you watch as you fall to your death for the 5 millionth time. Or you tell him to climb vines and he just doesn't do it, or there's a staggerment in his motion in climbing the vines. It just feels not as fluid as it should be, or as they claim it would be. But that's nothing compared to the enemies of this game. The enemies are mainly patrols of orcs that you have to maneuver and kind of distract to get around levels at times. Levels are divided into one of three categories for me. It's either a platformer, a trailing mission, or you have to do some sort of chore. That's how it is. It's very dumb. And most of the time it is you're given a checklist of things you have to do before you could advance to the next day. And probably the hypest thing about this game is that you get to breed birds. But even that is lackluster and pathetic. But back to the enemies at hand. The orcs are one of two ways, and it's a really 50-50 chance of them being this way. They're either chest grandmasters levels of genius knowing where you are even before you do, or they are fetuses and they don't know anything. Where if you use the distraction mechanic, which is chucking rocks to distract people, they'll sometimes listen for it, sometimes they won't. And it could just be you spamming rocks for the next 30 minutes before one actually goes over and investigates so that you can continue onwards. The puzzles are a bit annoying in this game because it's gathering up parts and pieces, and you know you can solve this puzzle, but at the end of the day, the game's like, nah, you're not ready yet. And you spend 15 more hours trying to put together this very simple puzzle that a 4-year-old should be able to solve. Honestly, I think tackling your football coach in grade school would be a smarter idea than playing this game. And that's not even to mention that during the end of the game, there's this heavy crash that either works or it doesn't. Either you have it happen and you have to restart your game multiple times, and I've even had people have to start new save files because the game kept crashing. They couldn't get past that one part. And it's unfortunately near the end of the game, in like chapter 8 or 9, I believe. But all in all, I find that the price tag of $50 for this is laughably bad. And this pulls the Forspoken of, you need the highest grade PC to run this. You don't. You honestly do not need the highest grade PC to run this. It looks like crap no matter what graphic fidelity you give it, no matter what setting you play on. It runs like crap, it plays like crap, and honestly, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemies. I would use this to torture black site prison terrorists. I would use this instead of waterboarding. This feels like a more effective way to make people hate themselves, to want to die. Honestly, there's only one reason you should play this game, and that's if you suffer from sleep apnea. If you have some sort of insomnia or have trouble sleeping, just put this on. Play this game. It is a severe rival to Ambien, and if more people bought this, $60 for one time of perpetually falling asleep to the greatest of sleeps they'll ever have, you could put Tylenol PM, you could put melatonin businesses out of sale with how boring this game is. All in all, this game gets 1 out of 10. I would take it lower, but the bird breeding minigame was pretty dope.